What's up everyone? Alex Corey with CultivateChange.com. We finally had a killing frost in western North Carolina. As you can see behind me, there are no more squash. We pulled them all up, thank God. We're going to go over some considerations for planning for your next growing season that you can do after a killing frost. It's good to take stock of a couple things like where everything was, so it helps you planning for crop rotation for the next spring, and we'll go take a look at what died coming up. Okay, so bucket of butternut. Not all of those are good because we planted a second generation in, it was probably July, so they didn't have a ton of time to mature, but there's quite a few massive butternut in there. All of these tan ones will cure for about 2 days, and then they'll come upstairs where it's pretty chilly for storage. Those died. We ripped out most of the squash plants. You can see another pile here. I still have to do some cleanup here. Flower bed died, so all the mint. And if you've never grown a garden before, this is actually how you learn. So different herbs are for different seasons. So cilantro will make it through. Parsley, as you can see, will make it through. If I can focus in on that guy. Yeah. So different herbs for different things. All the basil's toast. Obviously basil is very, very summer. Strawberries will come back next fall, or next spring rather. Lettuces are okay. So lettuce don't like consistent hard frost because their cell walls will rupture and freeze, but they're fine with just touching. So it hit 28 here, and that's fine. They don't like it, and they will start to get they're not going to grow a ton, but you can see the zucchini that almost was. I almost got another full one right here, and we still have some arugula popping in right there. The one thing that amazes me is how well marigolds hold on. So these are a marigold. They're done, but they're not as done as I thought they're going to be. Some are still holding their color. And then the one thing that amazes me is I've never picked tomatoes this long before. And there are still some tomatoes. They didn't all freeze and they're not all mush. See if I can give you, like, you know, it's not dead. There are still some tomatoes. That guy. I'm not gonna eat it because it might not be the best, but they did pretty well for almost no soil. I maybe put, well, let's say an inch of compost down with some 5-3-3 fertilizer, and these guys were the best tomatoes I've ever grown. So from the ground, I'm 6 feet tall, so this is 6 feet. They went up there, so that's another 4 feet, and they climbed back down here. So I don't know, 15 feet, which is pretty good. All of our little flowers, which are gorgeous, are toast, but that's how that goes. So if you notice, all of the brassicas are okay as they are, so they're cold hardy. That's why you plant them. They're not going to grow a ton just because come the equinox, the daylight shifts, and basically we just had the time change, so they won't grow a ton more. And our morning glory is finally done, unfortunately. This thing was the best thing ever. It's my favorite part of a garden. We're going to have multiple trellises of this next year, different colors, because why not? But all of our greens are still cranking. Still got our lovely lettuce beds. And this bed was peppers, and I'll put a shot of we're going to try overwintering peppers. We'll put up a separate video of my roommate and I trimming the peppers down and trying to do overwintered peppers. But this is a good sized bed. So this is probably a 6 by 8 or 6 by 10. So we're gonna figure out what to do with that next year. There's thyme plant here, but all the greens are still growing, and we do that on purpose because they will not grow a ton, but arugula is good, spinach is still good, lettuce bed is still loving the sunshine, so this is another week to go. Carrots are still fine. Beets aren't going to do a ton more, but I might harvest them for their greens and then leave a couple to see what they do over winter. But that's the tour. So the thing that I wanted to mention was that whenever you're going around ripping things out, as I'm going to do right after I shoot this, I'm going to rip all the butternut out, rip the tomatoes out, make a note of where everything was, if you have space. So if you can rotate, and I'm fortunate enough to have some garden space, do rotate. So that's your pest management and disease management. Things over winter and go dormant in the soil. So insect larvae and fungal spores and bacteria. The soil doesn't really deep freeze here in Western North Carolina. It might freeze an inch down, but it does not ever really deep freeze. So you need to consider rotating families of crops. So rotate brassicas, rotate nightshades, anything that has a specific pest or disease problem. Usually it applies to families, but sometimes it's specific things. Like tomatoes have plenty of specific things that attack them, pathogens that aren't nightshade in general. So it's a wise idea, if you are able to, if you have the space, to rotate potatoes, peppers, any other real large monocrops. So lettuces aren't usually a ton or a large issue, just because it's slugs and other things that tend to eat the roots and they will die. But it's if you have problems with fungus, as we do here because it's temperate rainforest and it rains all the time, and then bacterial issues. So if you had a wilt or anything like that, as we did with the tomatoes, next year one way to get around that is to plant various herbs and beneficial flowers around everything. So don't monocrop. So if you're going to grow a diverse selection of veggies, grow a diverse selection of veggies and sprinkle them everywhere. I do like putting things together just because they're easier to manage space-wise, and if things require trellising or staking up, things like that. So I do like to put peppers together and tomatoes together, but I will intersperse herbs and greens around just to get some integrated pest management and get some beneficials in the soil. But things like tomatoes, so wherever the tomatoes are, I will put I'm still going to put down a clover cover crop. Tomatoes just suck the life out of the soil. Same thing with peppers. Any of the things that are in the ground for that long, for 5 months, just drain the soil of nitrogen specifically. So put in a nitrogen fixer, so that's any legume, a pea. So I will put in a nitrogen fixing cover crop, and then next spring I'll go back and see what I put where this fall and move it. So that will not be the pepper bed. Next year we're going to do something different. They'll be in one of these beds. There'll be something different there. We're still going to do intercropping and all of the other techniques, but for the large monocrops, it's good to move them around just so you don't give anything else that likes to eat them a head start that overwintered in the soil. It's really only the heavy nitrogen fixers you have to worry about for soil fertility. I use the same amendments whenever I turn over a bed anyway. So I do compost, green sand, slow release organic fertilizer, and a long-term phosphorus. So that happens anyway. You can just get away with compost if you're doing that, but I don't necessarily want to worry about constantly applying compost, so I do like using a little more targeted approach. But the garlic is doing well over there. Let's go check on it, and then I will leave you. Just wanted to remind you, if you are planning on doing a spring garden and you've been gardening this fall, it's wise to write down where everything was and then rotate come spring, unless you have beds specifically designed for that. Like this is garlic and it'll be there until next May or so, and then we'll plant a summer crop there. May or June. But things like carrots that we're going to pull up in the spring, we won't replant carrots there just because it's or actually we might. This is one of the things that that's quite annoying about specific varieties. Carrots really like silty, fluffy soil, really well draining, almost non-water retaining soil. And those beds have been heavily amended with rice hulls. So I may just apply a ton of compost and then put something else there. But I could just plant carrots there because nothing has been attacking the carrots this fall, but we shall see. I just wanted to go over the last of the garden videos. We'll do another one on how we did the peppers, and then I'll do one if we apply a cover crop, and we might put up a greenhouse right there for the fall. We're gonna do a bunch of spring starts. But this will be the last garden update video I do of this season, mostly. We're transitioning into more inside stuff, and we'll see you in a future video.